Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, we're going to talk today again about red flag laws. Now, we have talked an awful lot about red flag laws, and I have disclosed to the viewers that I have represented many people on these types of hearings. We call them extreme risk protection orders out here in the People's Republic of Washington, but I have made some controversial statements, if you would, about these, because I have said that I believe that the people who drafted red flag laws, I believe that their hearts and their minds were mildly in the right place. I understand the reason why we have red flag laws. I have seen reasons for which extreme risk protection orders were very properly filed. However, and I have always added this big, huge however, which is when we see the application of these laws, that is, how do we carry out the effect of these laws, that's when they completely fall apart from a constitutional standpoint, because they absolutely, and without any doubt whatsoever, trample all over an individual's civil liberties, and there is no debating that. Now, as we know, there is a big push for red flag laws, not because it's going to save lives, but because it's another tool in the act of trying to achieve civilian disarmament. Things are beginning to get really nasty, a little dirty, if you would, a little nefarious. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about when the federal government starts bribing states to violate your constitutional rights. Okay, so the piece of legislation that we're talking about today is the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Now, this was passed last year during the Biden administration in response to two horrific shootings, one of which occurred in Buffalo, New York. The other one occurred in Uvalde, Texas. Now, one of the things that this piece of legislation did was grant all sorts of federal money to states to help them implement red flag laws. Now, there were many in the Second Amendment community who screamed, time out, wait a second, we don't want to be handing out federal money to states to just trample on individuals' constitutional rights. And so there was supposedly, theoretically, a bipartisan agreement that was made in which there would have to be certain due process guarantees, procedural mechanisms in place for any of these states that wanted to implement red flag laws to ensure, and I don't know how this would actually be done, but to ensure that an individual actually had notice and a meaningful opportunity to be heard, which is what is so frequently deprived of respondents on red flag orders. Now, remember, the cash that every state was supposed to get was going to be conditioned, theoretically, upon these states drafting red flag laws that actually attempted to protect an individual's procedural due process rights. However, and this is the big however for this video, it appears that instead your federal government, your Department of Justice, has actually been using this money essentially to bribe states into passing red flag laws that, of course, have absolutely no constitutional guarantees or protections in them whatsoever. But you see, now it appears that Senator Roger Marshall out of Kansas and Representative Alex Mooney out of West Virginia has sent a very sternly worded letter to Merrick Garland claiming that the Department of Justice is doing exactly this, that they are using this money and they are handing it out like free candy in an attempt to bribe states to pass otherwise unconstitutional red flag laws. The letter to Attorney General Garland reads as follows. The Department of Justice appears to have weaponized the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act to illegally fund ineligible red flag laws and bribe pro-gun states into passing gun confiscation laws. Since the passage of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, no states have revised their statutes to comply with the due process requirements imposed by the 117th Congress. Nevertheless, the Bureau of Justice Programs has funded every state that applied with a red flag gun confiscation law on the books without enforcing Congress's due process requirements. The federal government should have no part in funding state-level gun confiscation programs which violate the due process rights of gun owners. So if you're following here, what this piece of federal legislation was supposed to do is provide federal funding for states who may want to implement more modernized, more constitutionally sound red flag laws. However, what the Department of Justice has done is instead use this as bribe money to get states to pass this legislation. Now, the letter goes on to state, and I want you to pay attention to this, disturbingly, several states and territories without red flag laws on the books have been granted funding for the creation and implementation of such programs, including Arizona, Arkansas, Kansas, Minnesota, and West Virginia. It appears that this Bipartisan Safer Communities Act grant program is being used by the federal government to influence states into enacting red flag gun confiscation laws. But listen, it doesn't even stop there, because you did see one rather unusual suspect on the list, and that, of course, is West Virginia. Now, West Virginia is known for a lot of things, but gun control legislation is not one of them. They are a constitutional carry state. So why is West Virginia getting some money? Now, Representative Roger Marshall, when interviewed on Fox News about this subject, also had some very interesting comments. They included the following. The DOJ's efforts to disarm law-abiding gun owners is unconstitutional. The Biden administration must immediately stop this scheme to strong-arm states into enacting these laws and answer for the millions of dollars illegally distributed in an attempt to do so. Kansas will not accept any attempts by this administration to strip them of their Second Amendment rights. Couple that, though, with the public statements of Senator Mooney from West Virginia, who he himself was rather surprised to find his home state on the list. He responded to Fox News as follows. The scheme by the Biden Department of Justice is clearly intended to bribe and coerce states into adopting gun confiscation laws. West Virginia is a constitutional carry state and has no business receiving federal dollars to restrict Second Amendment rights. West Virginians deserve to know how the federal and state governments are spending tax dollars to limit your constitutional rights. And listen, I think the moral to take away from this, as well as a litany of other videos that we and a lot of other people out here in the YouTuberverse have done, which is that this particular administration will stop at absolutely nothing to achieve civilian disarmament. They've declared war on the FFL industry. They have gotten the shipping companies involved in this. They have gotten the social media companies involved in this. They are now funding and bribing state governments to pass legislation to further strip you of your rights. They are doing everything that is imaginable to strip you of your inalienable rights and force you to submit to the power of this federal government. We're going to keep our eyes on this. We'll see if the Department of Justice even bothers to respond in any way, shape, or form. We'll put links down below for the pertinent information that we discussed today. If you have any other questions about red flag laws or anything else related to what might be left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to contact Washington Gun Law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. In the meantime, I do want all of you to remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.